Hello, today we are going to talk about a unique product that has been introduced by B2B Matrix. But first, a couple of sentences about B2B Matrix. We are a 23-year-old company based in Palo Alto, California, and we focus on bringing enterprise data and AI insights into Salesforce. And today we will see that in demos as to how on a zero copy format, we can easily within hours surface data from any of the systems within your landscape or even outside your landscape exactly in the context of where the data is needed to facilitate transactions. And we will talk about our flagship product, API Visualization Studio. And you can read more about it on our website. But today we will focus on giving you a very comprehensive demo along with specific use cases. So let's talk about what this is. So let me share with you a couple more slides that position the product. So according to us, this gives you the power of your entire enterprise within exactly where you need it to be. And this is enabled by the first free Salesforce native API Visualization Studio, which also does AI insights. So let's talk a little bit more about it, and then we'll spend most of our time in the org. So this is your Salesforce platform, which is your trusted business anchor, and any company has many other systems within and outside that landscape. And how do we ensure that the exact data that is needed by the person in the Salesforce environment while they're quoting or while they're working on an opportunity or on a case, how can that data be surfaced and delivered contextually and provide answers using AI? All this without having to copy the data, without needing middleware, and without needing data cloud. How is this possible? And that is what we're going to see. So we believe this is an extremely important way to look at things because it helps you to give a end-to-end view because we look at not only a Salesforce-centric process view, but end-to-end enterprise business outcome. And the focus, as we mentioned earlier, is always on the doer, actually the person who's doing the transaction. And we will take an end-to-end view to see, to help facilitate the user by looking at the data across the system landscape that helps them sequence and prioritize their initiatives, and it helps us deliver quick wins. We're also going to look at how we lead with industry templates specific to, let's say, manufacturing or pharma or financials. And then we will look at how this is provided at exactly the point of decision where it is most relevant. So let me bring up an opportunity and let us say the use case is while I'm working on this opportunity, which is for an existing client, I'm planning to sell them some of our newer products. I would like to see what orders that are already there in the system over the last 1 year and what is the status of the orders, whether the fulfillment is complete or whether it is still in process or whether they are not started, and some other information about these orders and the statuses. And that information is most currently available in my backend SAP system. Now, I do not have access to SAP. And ideally, while I'm working on the opportunity, I'm not exactly planning to get out of this view and going to some data warehouse or run a Tableau report or a Power BI report to try and figure out what that is. The approach over here is as soon as I click SAP Order Details, it fetches the order in real time from SAP and surfaces it over here. And we will see how this is happening in the background. And when it surfaces it, it does so in a visual intelligence layer, which is very easy for us to interpret. And this has many, many capabilities, including exporting to Excel including being able to group, being able to filter, being able to move columns around, being able to pin columns, etc. And this is surfaced in real time. Not only that, once this is surfaced, remember there was no middleware that was used, though we can use it if necessary. This data is brought in real time. It is not persisted, though we can persist it if necessary. And now if I look at Agentforce, I'm able to run Agentforce insights on this data, which was surfaced in real time from SAP, and it does not even exist in my org. So I did not need to ingest this data or need data cloud for it. So now I can start talking to Agentforce about these orders. And as you can see, it has retrieved this information. I can say summarize completed orders with a C in the status. And I can keep giving it some queries. We will see whether it works. And okay, here is some summary. And so you get the idea. Now let us see behind the scenes how this is accomplished, since the focus of this demo is on the API Visualization Studio, and that's where we are going next. So this is the first time we have available now within Salesforce the ability for a user to, within Salesforce, test out APIs in a visually rich and intuitive way. So for example, let me bring up the same API that we just looked at. It gives you the ability for you to save API. So now we have loaded the endpoint. And if I send this API, if I call this API, it has come back, it has said request completed, and it has come back with the JSON. But we have added several more capabilities to this. One is that this JSON is hard to interpret. So we have our own Visual Insights Navigator, which is Vin. So if I say visualize in Vin, it takes the same information and now it will show you in a rich, visually intuitive manner, which is very similar to the output that you just saw. What you saw also had the conditional formatting and some additional capabilities on it, because that is something that we can specify on a per record basis, whether it's an opportunity or a code and on a per user basis. But this itself is super useful because it allows us to interpret this data. It allows us to analyze this data. It allows us to filter this data, and we can do some analysis or troubleshooting right here with the API. We can also send an LLM prompt along with this API, such as summarize the orders from SAP with respect to the status. And the prompt can be anything as you can imagine. And what is happening right now is I could have given this prompt even before I ran the API, or after I ran the API, I can give this prompt either way. And what it is now doing is it is taking the response from SAP and feeding it into Agentforce along with this prompt, and letting Agentforce do is provide its insights, and it has surfaced those insights back over here, which is why it's taking a little bit of time. And we have a couple of different options to speed this up further. But what it is going and doing is, if I scroll down below, this is where below my well-organized JSON response is where it's going to then end up putting the prompt. So now it says AI analysis generated successfully. And here is my AI analysis. It is telling me information about what data it got, what the date ranges was, what it is summarizing the statuses, it is giving you some notable trends, and so on and so forth. This is a very important and a useful exercise, because this allows us to, so within matter of minutes, be able to work with an endpoint, see what data we get. And once we get the data, let's say we want to surface it on the opportunity record, or it could be a case record or a code record. But let's take the example of an opportunity. Let me go to an opportunity record page. And if I go to the Lightning page, I can go and create a tab, and I'll show you the tab over here, which is SAP Order Details. And this is where you saw it, but it is easy enough for me to, let's say, go to some other tab and add it over there. I can create a new tab, or let me just, in the interest of time, let me just add it below this once again so you can see. So it's as easy as basically we do create an in the background a object record, and you see this component. This is a Visual Insights Navigator that you drag and drop. And once you drag and drop over here, we have the various object action records. And I find the one for SAP Order, which is this one we are working with. As soon as I see that, as you can see, it is rendered that information. And if I save it, that's how it will appear. So that's really how simple it is in order for you to surface any information from any backend system onto any object in Salesforce. Let me take one more example, which is different from coding. So here is something which is related to Salesforce Health Cloud. And here is a patient. I don't have a health cloud, so I'm using a contact instead of a patient object. But the use case over here is if I click over here, it should go to a backend. It's not even a backend system. It's a system that is not owned by me, but it is an Epic system, which is even outside my landscape. And if I click on this, it connects to Epic and it brings back all of the patient tests within within the filter criteria that you're given. A visual intelligence layer adds the conditional formatting. As you can see, it highlights some of the results. And we have all of these capabilities which are covered in other videos, but I'll show you again. I can group by encounters, office visit, hospital encounter, orders only, etc. I can do multi-level grouping. So within that, I can do orders only and platelet count or hemoglobin count. And I can, of course, export it to Excel if I want to. And this is a well-formatted Excel. So and we can apply a well-formatted template. So as you can see, we have put in our company logo so that you get an idea that it can be a very well-formatted Excel. You can do some charting. So if you want to do some charting of trends, you can choose to, let's say, sort it by test name, and you can chart any of these values using any of these charting capabilities. So these are some, and now I can, as you saw with the earlier use case, I can also interact with this data using Agentforce. Again, once again, I will pick up my medical assistant agent that we have created. Please note that this data does not exist in Salesforce, though we can persist it, and we just surfaced it in real time. And now I can start interacting with this data. So this is made possible by a combination of our API Visualization Studio and by a visual intelligence layer that allows us to do this kind of, what did it, let me see. Let me ask if it's able to process my query. So if I asked it and then it found something and it says, okay, this is abnormal, etc., this is one result, and then I can interact it with more and more. So now let's get back to our API Visualization Studio. And there is so much more that this studio can do. So for example, we saw that we can call any API, and of course we can save those APIs. So here is an API from Cerner, which is another backend system, which we can call, and you'll see the results rendered over here. But where we are going next is where we can create a industry template. So our goal is that you can have industry templates, which are one or more APIs that are called in a sequence. So here is our industry template builder. So we have pre-built some cards. Again, the focus is on the doer or the person who's actually doing the transaction. So we have manufacturing or healthcare and pharma. We have various cards, and you can add more cards, and we'll take a look at what's behind these cards. Or we can have financial services. So let's take an example of manufacturing, and let's say the use cases we would like to know what is the status of inventory available for sales while you're quoting. So these are industry templates for in-flight business process decisions. So the scenario is that when I am quoting and I'm in the business of making widgets, I'd like to make sure I have enough inventory by a particular date so that I can put that and commit that in my quote. But checking inventory is not as simple as just looking at some warehouse and seeing how much inventory you have. At a minimum, it requires you calling three different APIs. Which are the three APIs? If I call on this, it gives you these APIs that are relevant to this business process. You call the sales order API to see what are the existing orders in the system. You call the inventory API to determine how much inventory you have at various different locations. You call the purchase order API to determine how much new inventory you are about to receive. And then you have a formula. And then we also have an LLM prompt that which bridges all of this information that comes from these APIs together and delivers insights. So this is the glue and the industry experience that comes into play where we tell it how to interpret the results from each of these APIs. And how do we calculate the net available amount for quote? And it takes into account the dates that are involved. And then once we save this template, then we are able to execute this template. When we come back to the API Visualization Studio, I pick from industry template the manufacturing inventory available assessment. It will fire these three APIs. And when I say execute the sequence, it will then give me four tabs, three tabs for each of the three APIs. So sales orders, we already saw this single API executed earlier. This is the inventory. This is where the information comes in. Again, it comes in a visually rich way. The purchase orders, here are the different vendors on which you have put in purchase orders for this quantity. And this is where all this information is processed by Agentforce along with the prompt that we have given, and it will deliver the insights where it has summarized the demand, the inventory, the supply, and the net available. And this is a combined insights that can be surfaced on any object in Salesforce on any transaction. So to summarize, this free solution suite that provides visual insights on a zero copy basis, we have the visual intelligence that we saw. The idea is it can guide the user to the right action, and it's almost like an in-transaction dashboard so that the user does not have to leave the screen where they are working. It is all zero copy. It can be from any ERP or a cloud data warehouse or any external system, and it can be surfaced using our Salesforce native API visualization and AI Insight Studio that we saw. And these are all the systems that we have already tried, but there are many others that we try, and it really is a matter of hours and days. And we saw that how we can deliver Agentforce insights on enterprise data that is not currently available in Salesforce. So we fetch the data real time as needed and then run insights on it and deliver it to the person who's running the transaction. No data cloud needed, no middleware needed, but we can work with middleware, we can work with data cloud, but it's not needed. What we are working on next is how do we leverage our API Visualization Studio to deliver all of this rich information from your backend systems directly to Slack. So how do we turn Slack into a conversational interface to the entire enterprise? Because to summarize, the free API Visualization and Insight Studio does the following already. It already provides to you a lightweight solution, a super lightweight solution to every external system. And all you need is basically the endpoint and the authentication. And the information that comes in can be organized and displayed in a very visually rich and intuitive way, as we saw. And we can interact and filter and analyze and group the data that comes in. And instantly we can then pull it onto any transaction. And then we talked a little bit about the industry templates where we are able to put sequences of APIs together which can be calling APIs from different systems. And with LLM integration, we consolidate all of the combined insights. So our vision with Slack is that within Slack, this is not ready, but this is what we are working on, that within Slack, somebody would ask a transaction specific question, and it within Salesforce calls our API Visualization Studio and sends that information. The API Visualization Studio will then call the APIs exactly like we saw. It will do all of the analysis and it will return that information back into Slack. So, as an example, you're in Slack and you're asking a question, hey, I have this code and can I deliver 100 commit 100 units of this particular SKU by April 30th? And it then calls or it then figures out what industry template to run. It runs that template and then it returns that information back into Slack. And when in Slack, you see this information being surfaced. So that is the vision of where we are going. And all of the core work within Salesforce is already done. The only stitching that needs to be done is to be able to call this from Slack. So that is why, in summary, we believe that we can deliver the power of the entire enterprise in the palm of your hands with our free native API visualization and AI Insight Studio. Thank you for watching. Please contact us and in the using the contact details at the start of this recording.